We're here today with Brian Finger, a friend and founder and CEO of multiple companies. He I think you sold a big one, and that was a lot of hard work. And I also know that I'd like to maybe share a little bit about that hard work and that story about how you started the company, and maybe when you had to eat rice-a-roni for a week or something, and no money and no shower or whatever. I think it's important probably for entrepreneurs to kind of know that there can be definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. So tell me about your company that you started and you sold and what you're doing now, but then also maybe a little bit of the story about what happened when you started. You took that plunge into entrepreneurship.
Sure. Well, I was working for a major data company in Atlanta, and one of my clients was a small company in Pensacola, Florida. And eventually I was offered a partnership with this company, and I moved from Atlanta to Pensacola when we had 8 employees. And from day one, I was struck by the quality of the people that we had in Pensacola. And over a period of 8 years, I hired approximately 1,000 employees. And over that time, I really became a big fan of veterans. And the Pensacola community, obviously, is the cradle of naval aviation, has a lot of not only active military, but retired military spouses. And, we were talking about this earlier. One of the things that as an employer, I really liked was the fact that they were so trainable. They were trained to be trainable. So they were excellent workers. Every chance I got, I would hire vets, and I still do to this day.
Now you're the company that you started. Did you started it here in Pensacola, or you started it up in Atlanta?
Right. Well, I didn't actually start it. Tim Falzo, my partner, started it, and I moved down here when there were 8 employees, and we went big after that. We became the nation's largest provider of both telemarketing services and mailing list products to insurance agents in the whole U.S. And that takes a lot of people. We didn't do it alone. We had a lot of help and a lot of veteran help, and for that, I'll be forever grateful.
So you joined as part of the startup of this, is that right?
I joined the company in the very beginning. Yeah, probably a year or 2 after it had been founded. It just had 8 employees, and I worked for a large national data company that was a division of TRW and Experian, and we took it from there and grew it from 8 to at the time we sold, probably had 350 employees.
If you have a story about entrepreneurship, about when you take that leap, right, or vetrepreneurship for those of us.
I love that term, by the way.
We're really talking about here, right? You take a leap, you take a risk.
Yes, you do.
How many years did you go without making any money in your early career, whether it was with this company or something else? Tell me a war story, basically.
Like most entrepreneurs out there, I've had a number of companies, and some of them were successful and some of them weren't. But one of the things that you learn as an entrepreneur is you learn from your mistakes, and you do something a little bit different, a little bit better the next time. But you don't ever give up, and you keep looking for quality people to help with your team, on your team. And veterans make the best team members too.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think critical thinking, all the normal things that we talk about, critical thinking, leadership background skills, the ability to understand the progression of learning something and then mastering it and then moving on to the next rotation, right? Which is what we talked about earlier. They're veterans. I think a lot of us are trained to be trainable, like you said, right?
Exactly.
And I think when we talked about that earlier, I mentioned there's no scientific backing, or history about that, but that's just the philosophy that I think is that I have. But every time I tell the story, it definitely makes sense, right?
Right.
And so from a company's perspective, why is that important to you? Whatever, you're making promises to clients that the people back at the shop, so to speak, have to keep.
They have to execute it.
Right. So if you're making a promise, you have to understand, am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to do it right? Am I going to be able to do it on time? Am I going to be able to do it at a profit? Am I going to be able to, hire more people? All those things come into mind. What's the benefit of you being able to get people up to par, to deliver, to produce, whatever, based on the promises that you're making out there on people?
Well, I found as an employer and having hired hundreds of people that, the veterans have performed the best for me and my organizations. So
what was your aha moment? Like when you oh, I just figured it out. Yeah. You know what? I need to focus on veterans.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think over time, as I saw the cream of the crop in our employee ranks rising to management level positions, how many of those were retired military or spouses of military. Not only are they great at being trained, but they're also great at being there on time. They're seemingly more responsible and more thoughtful in their actions, I think, and in their learning than a general population, let's say, of applicants.
Yeah, this is insider conversations, right?
Right.
This is C-suite conversations is what we're calling it, right? So these conversations are intended to be, we want, C-suite to get some insight from your experience and our conversation about this that maybe will help them with their aha moment about hiring veterans, right? Or if you're going to start your own company, do it, and like you said, you will have trials and errors, but you've got to remember to fall forward, right?
And accept them and learn from them.
What do you think is happening in the industry today, or what's about to hit, post COVID here with the economy, the new president, taxes, costs, as an employer, if I'm the C-suite, right? And so you're also the consummate entrepreneur yourself. So you sold and so did really well with your one of your companies, right?
Right.
But apparently you can't sit still because now you have some other companies still, right?
I do, yeah.
What kind of companies do you have now?
These are self-storage facilities.
Okay. So an example of an entrepreneur, you can't, it's like too much energy, right? I mean, it's like you don't have to do anything if you don't want to.
But I think if it's in your blood and you enjoy being around other people and building teams and building organizations, that,
right,
it's hard to retire from that.
Well, we were even, and it's not time to tell you to talk about your idea, but we were also talking earlier about this idea that you've been cultivating in your head for the last 20 years. So, I mean, you're behaving like a 25-year-old. What's up with that?
I don't know. I'm just thankful for the health and the mind that I have now, and obviously my family and the support system and structure I have in place. I'm at a good point in life, regardless of where we are. Hopefully we're coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are getting tired of that.
So as it relates to COVID and kind of the economy starting to kick back up again and people getting out and buying goods and services again, spending, et cetera, we have to start employing people. What are your thoughts? I mean, if you were, well, you still are for your storage company, but if you had to continue to have a hiring, phase again, what are some of the things that you really want to focus on? And give me some insight. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, COVID, has really changed the landscape for a lot of businesses and a lot of industries. I mean, the office space that's going to be required by industries going forward, I think is going to be greatly lessened, because employers are learning that a lot of employees can be extremely productive from home, and they're happier from home, and it costs the employer less. So another example of how COVID's kind of affected my business, the storage business, is that we had to revamp our website in order to handle rentals online. So you can rent a unit directly online without ever having to go to the office, and you get your gate code and you can buy insurance and everything else in a contactless environment.
So that means that you also have to have less people at your facility, right? They can work from home. I mean, obviously you have to have maintenance and those kinds of things and security, right?
Right.
But so that goes back to the hiring spouses as well. Some industries like banking services and customer service and those kinds of things, they're really being able to take advantage of being able to have people work from remotely, but also from spouses. If you get orders to a new location, that spouse has already been trained, good employee, good team member, with all the new technology that's really been pushed hard because of COVID.
Right.
Being able to retain your job with the company that you're at, say in Pensacola, but all of a sudden you get orders to California. What are your thoughts about spouses and having that portability of their jobs because of that?
Right. I love it. It makes it a lot easier to find qualified people. And, to get more women involved too, actually, which is nice.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of great female employees, like I'm sure most employers have. And especially those military spouses.
Yeah.
I could name you a number of them. I was just thinking a number of them that have risen the ranks and become managers
that you've hired over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we were talking about COVID, and we're talking about vets and spouses, and obviously for an employer, them coming with TRICARE to the table as an employee relieves the employers of what could be growing health insurance bills.
Yeah, I mean, so an example. I mean, let's say
premiums are definitely going to be going up. They have been for years now. So.
Yeah, well, so premiums for health insurance for civilians every single year, they come in with, it's going to go up between 16 and 20%. It's like, wait a second, how is that possible? But there's not much we can do about it. We negotiate down to maybe 12 or 13% and pretend like we're happy about it. Increase for every year. But one of the things that we've done too is if someone comes on board and they don't need health insurance, we may take whatever we would have normally paid and take a big percentage of that and pay it in the way of salary to the person. And then the company saves money and they make a little bit more money. And everybody's happy. Right? We
do the same thing. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah. When you started hiring veterans and or their spouses, was there anything that you had to kind of start thinking about that you had to do differently? Do you have a different mindset? How did you pair civilians and people that didn't have that experience, or did you have any obstacles there that you ever had to deal with?
Oh yeah. And, moving from Atlanta down to the cradle of naval aviation, a military town, Pensacola, Florida, you become acutely aware that you're not as familiar with the various branches of service and all that is entailed for those people joining the service. And so I learned a lot more especially obviously about the Navy and after moving to Pensacola. And like I said, the quality of the employees that we've gotten from this local area has been outstanding. And I think that's another reason why, companies like Navy Federal are moving here and moving a lot of jobs here, as they see obviously the huge advantages to having vets in the workforce.
Well, they moved their whole headquarters and a lot of their services, and they're expanding like crazy there. It's kind of made their own little city.
10,000 jobs.
10,000
here
jobs.
in Pensacola.
Yeah, exactly. And they also kept anyone who wanted to come down from where they were before. I think up in Virginia or wherever they were.
Beach,
wherever they were, they anyone who wanted to come down, I believe they offered them, the relocation and kept their job. So, really great stewards.
And there's a lot of other companies, these tech companies that are located out near and around Eglin and Fort Walton. They're hiring almost 100% ex-military, and those are high tech, high paying jobs, and these companies are doing real well.
Our mission at VetCV really is to help people that are active duty prepare to transition into civilian life. And there are a lot of things that go on with transitioning into civilian life. People say that some of the most stressful situations that people, no matter if you're active duty or military or veteran or whatever, civilian, that the family ever has to go through is a move, right? But moving from a job and then moving at the same time, possibly, or moving from something that's very, they've been doing it a while, they know what to wear every day, and those kinds of things. They know what team they're working with, know what their responsibilities are, and then transitioning to a civilian job and converting the military acronyms from, whatever it was that they used to do into civilian speak is something that is sometimes very difficult to do. And so actually one of the things that I found is that there's so much focus on trying to help veterans civilianize their resume, so to speak, to take those military acronyms out and translate them into what they mean in civilian terms. Like, this is what I did in leading this project, and how it turns into revenue or turned into safety or whatever the case may be. But what I don't hear a lot about, and maybe you can tell me about this from your experience, is that, sometimes the veteran hasn't done or didn't do enough to translate that military-esque resume into civilian stuff. But don't you think that it also should be the responsibility of, say, you, the CEO, or us as CEOs, to make sure that we also teach our team to try to understand what it does say on those resumes? It's not just only the responsibility of that active duty person or veteran to translate. We've got to do it. It's our responsibility too, to read between the lines and figure out what things mean and how does that translate into the value that we want from that person, so they can be a good team member. Right. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, have you ever seen a bunch of resumes?
I love VetCV because that helps me as an employer kind of understand it a little bit better. And I don't have a problem asking applicants too, more specifically about their, what do these acronyms stand for? Tell me exactly what you were doing. And when you hear them, tell you about things that happened in the field and how they made adjustments and things like that, then, it becomes crystal clear to you that, there was a plan and they were trained, and this is, what the objective was.
That's interesting. What I'm hearing from that is that it's important to provide the time and the interest to explore more on your end, right on as the employer's side, to really understand.
Well, kind of where we're talking around it, I think, a little bit, but I think what we're really saying is we're confirming that old adage that at a company, your most valuable asset are your employees, the people that are working there, the people that are doing the job every day. And with Vet's help, and hopefully in the future, we'll be hiring more people through VetCV. I look forward to continuing to grow my companies and help other employers become aware of VetCV and the advantages to hiring veterans.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, we talked earlier, and I thought you knew about some of the tax credits and also funding that's available for apprenticeships and OJT and things like that for certain categories of veterans.
Right.
But you weren't.
No, I wasn't.
You can get paid. I think you can get paid 6 months of their salary can be paid by VA in some circumstances.
That's amazing. No.
What does that mean to you as a company then?
It means that me as the CEO, I've been doing a bad job staying informed, because if I had known that there was a financial benefit, even, beyond the advantages you get from hiring a vet, but I don't know that I'd even want to hire anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one company, for instance, that I won't mention their name, but they're a good big size company that we were working with, and last year they left $1 million on the table that they could have been, the VA would have paid to help get veterans onboarded and oriented and trained up to do what they need to do at that company. $1 million.
Right. Well, I don't want that to happen to me.
Good.
I need that $1 million.
Yeah. So listen, we're gonna close this out, but again, this is just a couple of guys. We've started companies, and we want to share some of our insights and ideas and worries and concerns and those kinds of things through these C-suite conversations. Is there anything that you would encourage? If a veteran is looking to get a job, what are 2-3 points that you look for when they show up?
And I know it's a veteran coming for the interview.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I know that he's going to be trained to be trainable. So I'm going to really like that. I'm going to notice probably right away that his appearance or her appearance is going to be, in line with what's required at the company. And like we talked about earlier, the TRICARE insurance probably is not going to be an issue. And we talked also about, veterans' abilities to show up on time, which is huge. And my most valuable employees, I'll say it again, have been veterans. Yeah. And I'm sure that will continue to be the case. So I really encourage any employers out there that aren't familiar with hiring vets to do it. You won't be sorry. I promise you that. But there's a lot of employers in non-military towns that may not be as keenly focused because of past experience with veterans as I am.
Right.
And do yourself a favor and hire them. They served our country. Give them a chance. Give them the first chance.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Niels.